come, and I have actually finished doing all of the stitching of the squares together in bed last night. And now it's time to work on our borders. Now what we want to do is that we've been working with 49 squares. Now we're just going to work as if it's one big square in order to create the border. Okay, so we have two very different sides, and it turns out that I like this side a lot better than I actually like the other side. This side looks pretty fabulous, I will have to admit, but I like the other side. I like the texturing of the single crochet, how it just pops up and kind of creates a window effect. So it's almost like a reversible blanket as per se. So now we're going to focus on doing the border, and now this is where I need you to be careful. When we placed these squares down, we chose which side that we were going to sew them all together. So in actual fact, the squares kind of naturally want to do a bowl shape coming up towards you, so you can actually have a bowl of syrup in your squares. And so I laid them down face down. So in actual fact, all of the ones that are up here like this are actually facing me right now on the underside. So I guess the side that I've been using to stitch. So when we're working on, so basically on the other side it remains pretty flat. So now that we're considering everything to be a full square, when we went to crochet we tended to go in a circular formation, which causes the sides to be very different. So now we have to be paying attention, now that we've got 49 squares all together as one, is that if I go in the wrong direction or I crochet on the wrong side, what's going to happen is that it's not going to look consistent. So what I need to do, because I was crocheting in the counterclockwise because I'm right-handed, is that I want to make sure that I'm also doing the border in the counterclockwise. And that means that I can't just pick up the edge down here and start crocheting this way, because in actual fact, when I go to turn it over, I'm actually crocheting on the wrong side. So in actual fact, what I got to do is just pull the blanket toward me, just like so, and get the far edge and work the square as if it was a small one in my hand, and actually work it just like so and start on an edge. So in actual fact, but don't jump ahead of yourself, because we do have the seams that are joining the squares together, we actually have to compensate by that. Because what happens is that if you look really carefully, is that you got the hole and then three, hole, three, but then what happens here, because the seam is right in the middle of the two, is that the hole is actually been separated by two. So we actually have to compensate for that, because what's going to happen is that if you don't, the actual border is not going to look right. So what we're going to do is start a tutorial on how to do the border, and you can do any colors you want. You might want to do all of your colors all continuously around, and but let's get started. So now let's begin to do the border, and now we're going to treat this whole blanket like it's an actual square, which it kind of is really. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring balance by adding a border to it, but we have to make sure that we compensate every time we end up into one of these particular seams. Now, we'll also remember what we did is that we left off string, because now this is the opportunity to be able to put this seam kind of into the actual stitching, so that you can know that when you work it in and there's still a little bit left, that you can cut it without it having to fall out. Now, I would also do, if you did the seams in this color, I would actually do the first border in that color as well to bring balance to it. But again, you're the designer, you have to decide what's right for you. So we want to treat this like it's a big old-fashioned square, so let's do your slip knot. Okay, and be generous again on your tail. We do want to bury that into the project. So we just want to stick it right into the corner itself, and taking the string and the straggler, which is the loose end that I always say, and we just wrap it around the hook and we pull through, and then using your other hand, grab that other stitch that's on the hook and pull through. I always find it's easier to kind of lift it up at this point. So we're just going to be going around like it's a regular square, as if we're adding another color to a regular square. So that was considered one. Let's grab it again and pull through two. Okay, we're just chaining. And see, the straggler is being sucked up into this stitch, which is going to lock within itself. And this will be number 3. Remember that any of the corners of the granny squares that we've been doing is a 3-2-3 configuration. It's 3 here, it's 2 chain, and 3 there. So that was considered one of, and we're only doing the one side of the granny square. And now you do see that there's a straggler. I can safely cut that at the end of my project now, knowing that it's been mixed within this stitching, so I know that it won't make my project fall apart. So let's now chain 1, and now jump to the next one. So this is just like we're actually doing a big square, but what we want to do is that we want to keep concentrating so that when we get to the seams that we actually are keeping the border looking consistent. Because the seams are actually separating the two squares from each other, it's actually separating one of the holes that we need to jump. And if you put all of your strings on the one side of the hole and not both, then it's not going to look balanced, and you'll see it later, and then people are like going, did you do something wrong? So now I'm going to show you how to compensate for that. So let's keep going. In today's hook, I'm using Lori Mueller's, and she's from Exquisite Concepts, and she's from Alberta, Canada, and she specializes in making customized crochet hooks out of polymer, and she uses classified materials from what I understand. Really fun to use, and she puts patterns and really exciting stuff on the crochet hook. So if you're interested in that, you can locate her on my website. Now we also have the seam right here, and now this hole is supposed to be together as one hole, but it's not. So what we need to do is just come in the one side for a double crochet, okay? And now we want to kind of do it like we were bridging over there. So we want to just chain one, and now come in the other side. And now this is the opportunity now to get this straggler from this particular seam into your project, okay? So don't be scared at this point to put both strings in and actually put them together. And that's why I kind of like it to be the same color of the seams, is that you can really hide these colors, and now you can actually probably safely cut this little doohickey off and not have to worry about it falling out. So the next time we come around this particular square, we're actually going to go in here, but we'll jump over there because that's considered 3 even though there's a gap, and we just continue to go around and it will fix itself. So it's chain one and continue along. So now you just have to go around your blanket as many times as you want to. The size is basically up to you at this point, and if you want to make it bigger, it's up to you, and if you want to just make a very simple border, again, that's up to you. And we're almost done our project. We just have to finalize all of the loose ends, and your project will be complete. I'm about to go my second time around, and it's just like doing the other regular granny squares. We just finished it off with a slip stitch, and then we start off with chaining of 3 and then putting in 2 more double crochets right in on the corner. So I decided that when you look at my pattern here, you'll see that you have the color burst in the middle, you have 2 white, and then the complementary color on the outside of the squares. And it makes sense if you're going to be cheap like me, and this is not an insult, but you know, I'm so excited that the project is near completion. Sometimes I kind of cheapen up and I don't do as much of the final details. Like I could actually go around this entire blanket with all of the 6 colors just to kind of make it even bigger, but you know what, I'm too lazy to do that. And you know what, sometimes I'm the queen of too much. So you can quote me on that, the queen of too much. And we're just working our way along. And what I want to show you in this particular round is where the seam was, where we purposely jumped over, where we double crocheted, chain, and double crocheted on the other side of the seam. Now I realize that the camera angles is not compared to not what you're used to. It's just kind of, I'm up and down with this project. I'm finding myself that it's kind of harder to do this project because it's so big. Okay, so I'm at the point now, I'm at the gap before you see there. So that's where we jumped over the seam and then over. So we're just going to put our 3 on the one side. Okay, this is the gap before it turns into the seam area. Okay, so consider this, even though you can see a gap right in the middle, consider that you actually, this is together as one. So just chain your 1 as normal and then jump over the whole thing and come onto the other side for another 3. So basically, if you would have finished it off and put something in here in the seaming area, it would have actually been really awkward on this side. So you actually can see that there is a slight difference on this side, but it's not going to be so noticeable that you'll see the material actually doing a weird ruffle or a weird bump. So you just want to make it look like it's concealing. And you know, the colors are so busy as it is that probably nobody would really hardly notice anyway, and if they do, they probably wouldn't say anything because it looks fabulous. So the next part of our project is we're going to finalize off. We're just going to circle this one more time with this white so that there's double white just like there is double white around all of the circles. And we're just going to finalize it and start trimming some loose ends, and we're nearly done this project. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to lay your project out, whether it's on the floor or top of the bed. In my case, it's the dining room table. And I have a big studio light that you can't see, but it's like really massive and it's behind the camera. And that studio light is actually giving me a little bit of shadow in order for me to see any loose ends. So now, using your fancy dancy scissors, you just want to start inspecting. And because of the way that you actually did this project, that you know that all the strings are kind of buried, you can safely cut all of the loose ends pretty close to where it should be. Because if you never verified that it was not going to fall apart before, then what's going to happen is that if you cut the strings too close, you actually might have a square completely fall apart on you. And I guess if you want to learn yourself some bad words, that's the way to go. So what you need to do is just do the one side, just meticulously go through, and you're going to find as you're using this project that you'll have more that you see as you go along. So I would keep the scissors around for a few days as you're using your new project. And if you're giving it away, I'd really come back to it, leave it where it is, come back to it from a different angle. So let's look at it from a different angle, and you'll see more strings coming from a different way by just looking at it from a different point of view. And then once you've done the one side, again, you're just going to flip it. And you can see there's very much of a different side with this particular project.